Hi, welcome to the Sycamore Message Podcast with my extraordinary husband, Eric Burton. My name is Kamala, and he is going to bring you an impactful message. I know we are going to hear about Jesus, gain perspective for our lives, and have deeper understanding of the Word. Are you ready for the message? Here's Pastor Eric.
We finished up our sermon series last week on Summer of Stories. And the truth is, I'm going to tell another story today that's just not connected to a testimony of someone in our church, but we're going to be looking at the book of Job today, and I'm talking about faith reconstructed. Faith reconstructed. We're hearing more and more people go through a stage we've heard as deconstruction of faith. Y'all heard that before? Deconstruction of faith. And deconstruction isn't It's not bad. In fact, I would argue that it is sometimes necessary to have a deconstruction of your faith. But don't deconstruct your faith in the worst of times. We don't tear down our home and rebuild it during the storm. We don't deconstruct our vehicle or something that we're going to need at the worst time. We wait when we've got the opportunity and it's safe to deconstruct and rebuild. But so often people are deconstructing their faith and tearing down everything that they know about God, that they learned in Sunday school, that they have been taught, maybe things that were imposed on us, maybe things that we were made to do as young Christians and coming into Christianity. Maybe it was something that your parents made you do or that were taught, and then you get older and you realize that's not how I believe. And in a storm, we deconstruct. We just start tearing things out. Don't deconstruct your faith in a vacuum when you're all by yourself in a storm. But let there be people during this existential question and dilemma that you have with God. Let there be people around you that can help you rebuild. That can help you. After deconstruction, there ought to be reconstruction, right? We're not tearing a house down and say, I'm not living in a home again. No, we're going to rebuild, aren't we? We're going to reconstruct. And so today, we're going to look at the life of a man named Job. Some of you may open the Bible today, and there was a little joke. We were listening to this preacher the other day, and my wife actually, I told her what I was going to preach about, and she shared this story with me. And this preacher, she was ministering to this new couple that had just started coming to their church, and he was needing a job, and he just started reading the Bible, and I have got a terrible ring. He just started reading the Bible. And he opened it up, and needing a job, he saw the book of Job and thought God was telling him to get a job. And that's just how he interpreted. So I don't know how this is going to be interpreted to you today, but it's pronounced Job. And we're going to be reading from the book of Job, starting in chapter 1, verse 1. Again, thank you everyone for being here. What a beautiful group we have in the 9 o'clock service during our Labor Day weekend. And for all those, keep in prayer all those that are traveling today with family, that God would keep them safe, and that they would have tons of rest today. And that's our prayer for you tomorrow. We want you guys to enjoy the holiday. But for all our guests that are in town, we're glad to have you and thankful for you. Again, let me just reiterate, Serve Day is on the 20th. Last year, we had about 140 people serving with us on that day. You need to go on Church Center app and register, and we need that t-shirt size by tomorrow so we can get that order in. So please go and register for Serve Day. We're going to have a great day, September 20th. Job chapter 1, verse 1. There was once a man named Job who lived in the land of Uz or Uz. He was blameless, a man of complete integrity. He feared God and stayed away from evil. This is who we're going to be talking about today. Blameless. He had a life of complete integrity. He feared God. He stayed away from evil. Would you all agree with me that this is a good man? Would you agree? This is a righteous man. And this righteous man, we're finding in the book of Job that he is going to be facing some troubles. He is about to go through a storm that he had nothing to do with. He is about to go head face into a nest of spider webs. All right? Wouldn't that be the worst feeling ever? To go headlong into a spider web? That's what he's about to go into, a nest of them. Job is one of the oldest books of the Bible. Its authorship we're unsure of who wrote it, but it is so detailed as to the operation of things that go on in heaven and earth. And I'm not going to tell all the details. Some of the stuff I'm saying just to tease your appetite. I want you to go and read the 42 chapters of the book of Job. It is an immense, intense saga. And the authorship we don't know, but the details about this, about what's going on in heaven, they're very intriguing. What's going on earth, very intriguing. It's the first of the poetic books in the Bible. And the poetic books are a little bit different than the rest of the Bible in that the poetic books give us a view and perspective of man speaking to God rather than the rest of the Bible is God speaking to man. If you want to hear the heart of men and women talking to a God that they love, that they even are upset with, if you want to kind of see your heart and how you feel sometimes, read the poetic books. And the book of Job is one of those poetic books, the first of the poetic books in the Bible. It's raw, but it's refreshing. It has an insight as you hear about a man wrestling with his relationship with God and his place in everything. Like, where do I belong in all of this? And I personally love the story of Job because it's not pretty. The story of Job is not pretty. It's not a buttoned up, clean cut kind of picture of faith because some people, our testimony, it sounds like this, and it's good. And this is what God does. He is a redeemer. But sometimes it sounds like this. I once was, but now I'm, right? Yes. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Everything's good. I once was an addict, but now I've been delivered and I am free. I once was hateful and angry, but now I've been filled with joy. And we're like, maybe that's how everybody's Christian walk is. And that is the process. When we come to Jesus, things do get better, but they're not all better, are they? Can we be honest this morning? And when we realize that not everything is perfect when we're walking with Jesus, people begin to deconstruct their faith and they're trying to figure out, where does this all make sense? How can I reconcile my relationship with a God that they told me was full of love? And there is a peace that passes all understanding. And there is joy unspeakable and full of glory. How do I reconcile this with what I'm experiencing right now? And the book of Job, it's gritty. It's just gritty. You'll read it and almost recoil a little bit at the comments that are made, like, whoa, you're on the verge of blasphemy. You read the comments of Job and his three friends and you're like, whoa, can you even say that about God? Would you dare talk about God and talk to God like that? And in this conversation, there is what we're going to see in the book of Job. There's a conversation in heaven. There's a conversation between men. There's a conversation between God and men. A book of lamentation and wisdom and even subtle prophecy. Everybody say subtle prophecy. Because there's some things that, yes, are going to be said in the book of Job that Job doesn't even realize he is leaning towards something that is going to be fulfilled. It's 42 chapters. And God speaks to Satan in chapters 1 and 2. And then we don't hear anything from God until chapter 38, and God speaks to Job. He is silent. And all in between chapters 2 through 38, it's men talking to each other about what they think they know about God. You ever had a conversation with someone they think they know about what they're talking about? I've got a certain child that is of certain age, and I talked to, and my son Oliver, not embarrassing him, he's working in the 6 to 7 year olds in Sunday school this morning. but I've had to sit down with my son. I said, I'm going to talk to you about sex. Dad, I already know about sex. He doesn't say that, but that's I said, no. You're not going to have conversations with your little teeny bopper friends about something they think they know about because they had a little hookup in the back seat one day and they come bragging. They don't know about what, and then I'm going to talk to you about something. And that's what we have mostly going on in the book of Job. Some guys sitting around and talking about what they think they know about, and they don't know about it. Job's story feels and looks a lot like ours. A man that serves God but not aware of the goodness and fairness of God. Now here's what's interesting about Job. I'm giving just a quick discourse of kind of the outline of what we're going to get into. Job is not a Jew. It is believed that actually he is from Arabia. His friends, they're not Jewish. And this weighs in because they have questions about God that the same people that love God and worship Him have as well. They're not believers, as we might say. They're not Jews. They're not people of God, but they have the same questions that the people of God have. Is God just? Where is God? Is God real? If God is a God of love, then why? ... Anybody had those questions? The difference between Job and the rest of the Bible that is about God's people and who God is reaching is that Job is not in covenant with God like Abraham was. Job doesn't have promises attached to how he lives. And we're about to see this. And the first question I want to bring to our attention is that Job has as well, is God just? Is God just? Can we count on God to be fair and behave in a moral way when it comes to dealing and defending us? Or is He just concerned with His side and what benefits Him? Because it's very easy for us to be just when it includes me. I'm going to make sure I get mine, right? I'm going to make sure I'm fair with me, but are we going to be fair with others? And we have this question to begin, is God just? When bad things happen, people, they have questions, don't they? God, are you going to do the right thing when you saw the wrong thing happen to me? It's easy to hang blame on a God that we don't believe in. Let me say it like this. You've met people that have come to you and they said, if God is real, then why did He let what's happening over in Gaza happen to those people? If God is real, why are there people that died in that school shooting last week up in Minnesota? If God is love, why does He allow innocent children to go hungry? If God is real, why did my mom die, my dad die, my child die? If God is real, if God is love, and come to find out this person doesn't even really believe in God, but when bad things happen, they can take the blame and hang it on a God they don't even put their trust in, and they're using it to leverage it. See, God is not real. And we, as believers, the truth is we do the same thing. When things get bad, questions come up. God, are you just? And so we begin in the book of Job. And it says in verse 6, I just want you to hear in reading, I don't have it on the screen. One day, the members of the heavenly court came to present themselves before the Lord, and the accuser, Satan, came with them. So this picture we have, this is why I find Job so interesting, is we're getting insight into kind of the government of God. That He is God all by Himself, but there is this council, and He is in His throne room, and we see the royalty and majesty of God, and it's a day that the members of the council, the heavenly court, come before Him, and they present themselves. They present reports to Him. They present what He has told them to do, and they come back and tell God what has been done. And in this company, in the court, Satan shows up, and they call him the accuser. That's what the word Satan, or it's pronounced in Hebrew, Satan. Satan means accuser. It means one that is of opposition. In fact, it means superhuman adversary. You ever felt like you had an adversary that was just fighting against you today? You couldn't see him, couldn't put your hands on him, but something was just resisting you today. And then anybody ever felt like it was something superhuman? Something that was, it is so big, superhuman. You should just know that you're not walking this life of faith without opposition. There is an opponent to your faith. The fact that you're even walking in faith or choose to walk in faith and believe in God, know this. It is the evidence that there is an opposition in your life. And Satan shows up in the court to present himself to God. And he is an opposer. He is an opponent. He is an adversary. He is an accuser. That's all he does, is just accuses. He accuses God. He accuses Job. He accuses you. He accuses me. He tattletales on us. He shows up in the courtroom of God. And as the members of the court show up, Satan, the accuser, is there. You have an adversary. Let me encourage you this morning to know that in your faith, you have an adversary. You're not walking in faith and everything's going to be clean cut and pretty. There is someone invisible, a power. You can't, why? What is happening? God, are you just? It's because there's an adversary that is after you. There is an opponent that is watching your steps. He knows what you do and how you do it. He knows your proclivities. He knows your strengths. He knows your weaknesses. He knows your traps. He knows when you get up. He knows when you go down. He's been studying humanity for centuries. Jesus told Peter, the apostle, he said, Peter, I pray for you because Satan, the accuser, the superhuman adversary, I want to point out, the superhuman adversary, like supernatural power, he is after you who has weaknesses. You have to eat, you have to drink, you get tired, you have to sleep, you get wore out, but you have an adversary that doesn't get tired. You have an adversary that goes at it 24/7. He is roaming the earth seeking whom he may devour. How in the world can I fight against a superhuman adversary? And Jesus tells Peter, Satan longs to sift you as wheat, but here's your supernatural power. I pray for your faith that it doesn't fail you. You get tired, but you got a faith that doesn't get tired if you continue. Hey, it's natural to feel tired and weary, but you've got faith. And the thing that can stand up against the enemy in the darkest of days, all you have is faith sometimes. Jenny Lynn tells me all the time, I thought I saw her sitting over there. Jenny Lynn tells me all the time, Patsy and Quayna, all we've got is our faith. All we've got is our faith. And Satan shows up in the court, and he's wanting to accuse. And I like this. Job doesn't know this yet, but they're talking about him in heaven. I wonder if they ever talked about you in heaven. I wonder if when you've been feeling some bad stuff go on in your life, it's because they were talking about you in heaven. Satan is standing before God. Satan, the accuser, supernatural adversary, the opponent of your faith. And he is talking and he brings up the name of Job and he says, God says, where have you been? And he says, I have been roaming the earth. And you have to get this, the actions of what's going on in the spirit. That God has allowed Satan to roam on this plane. And God rules over everything. But he's allowed Satan, everybody say allowed. He has allowed Satan to stay on the earth. And he is roaming the earth. And he finds a man named Job. And he brings accusations against Job, but he brings an indictment against God. And he says, the only reason that Job is serving you is because you bless him. The only reason, and it's insulting to God, the only reason that he is serving you and loving you is because you put a protection around him and a hedge. And he only loves you because of the good things you do for him. I wonder if that's why we love God. I wonder if that's why we serve God, just because of the blessings He gives to us. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, it's an added benefit. I'm going to tell you right now that I serve God because of His blessings. I serve Him, yes, I love Him. The Scripture says because He first loved us. I didn't even know what love was until He loved me. But Satan is indicting God, and he's saying, He only loves you because of what you do for Him. But if you removed all of that, I bet He would curse you. I bet He would leave you. I bet He would forget all about you. Because they're just fair weather Christians. They're just fair weather followers. So God allows, everybody says allow, He allows Satan to attack Job. And God also prevents Satan from doing anything else. You can attack him. You can touch his body, but you can't take his life. And God's put parameters up around what Satan is allowed to do. Let me tell you, in your walk of faith, Jesus, He tells Peter, I am praying for your faith. And God allows Satan to do things, but there are balances and boundaries. And there are things that God does not allow him to do to your life and to my life. God allows certain forces to be at work in the earth. And we may not think that is just, but you don't know what He is not allowing to touch your life. Why is God, are you being fair? And God's like, if you knew what I told the enemy they could not do to your life, it would blow your mind. If you knew what He wanted to do to you, it would have blown your mind. I'm still in control. I love them, and you may not think they love me, but Satan, you can't do this, this, or this. God's still in control. God's still on the throne. Somebody say amen. Let me just show this to you. Job chapter 40. Verse 15, a little interesting thing here. Take a look at Behemoth, which I made just as I made you. He eats grass like an ox. See how powerful his loins are and the muscles of his belly. Its tail is strong as a cedar. And he's describing this animal called Behemoth. And it's believed that it's an actual creature, but it's also mythical. Some believe that it's mythical. Let me talk about that. The next chapter, Job 41, in verse 1, can you catch Leviathan with a hook or put a noose around its neck? And he describes this sea creature that has immense power that no human can tame. And he talks about two creatures that are mentioned just a very few times in the Bible, Behemoth and Leviathan. God is speaking about them. God is talking about them, so it's not imaginary, made up, but we don't know that people have actually seen these creatures. We don't have any historical facts or fossils about Behemoth and Leviathan, so I believe that they are real, but I also believe they are mythical. And by mythical, I don't mean that it's a lie or it's false. There are things that somebody experienced, and they can't quite describe it, and yet they pass on the tale. One night, ... One day I experienced ... And it was something so immense, nobody else has seen it, but they also believe in it. You ever had something in your life that's so big, you've never actually experienced, but it was told to you, and now you're feeling the weight of that? It's called anxiety, depression, fear. What are you afraid of? I don't know. I'm just afraid. It's something so... Do you have the ability to put a rope around fear's neck and pull it back? There are powers that are in the world that God allows to run loose in the earth but not destroy you. And God is asking Job, can you control Behemoth? They are also representative of chaos. That's what Behemoth and Leviathan are. They may very well be real creatures, but they represent chaos in our life. They represent something so big that God is asking Job, hey, can you calm it down? And we say, I can. And he says, I can. And it's been out to destroy you, but I won't let it destroy you. Is God just? Is God fair? Things that represent forces of chaos in our life that God is actually holding back. And you're afraid and you're worried and you've felt it touch your life and you've heard about it destroying someone else's life, and the tale was passed on about a creature so big, so large, so strong. And we live in fear of something we heard about someone else experiencing. And I believe that they run loose in the earth, and yet God is holding back the reins. God is in control. There is no telling what God has preserved us from in spite of what we have experienced. Is God just? Is He fair? We're going to find out. The second question is, why do we suffer? I mean, why do bad things happen to good people? Anybody ever been there? Why do bad things happen to good people? And I just take a little break here to ease the load. It's so good to have LG home. Can we give LG a hand? If you don't know LG, you need to find LG. And it's so good to have CJ and Halisha home, and God is using them down in Biloxi and Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and using LG over in Birmingham. LG she basically grew up in our church, went through our intern program, was in our youth group, when our young adults, and God, she's just doing awesome things. We love her, and CJ and Halisha have them home. But this is what I think is so funny. They're visiting, and they're the only ones on the front row. I just want to thank our church for honoring our front row policy. We leave it to guests and we leave it for angels. And the Holy Spirit. I know that y'all think those rows are reserved for heavenly angels, and these are some heavenly angels here. Y'all can sit on the front row, you know. You can sit on the front row. But bad things happen to good people, doesn't it? And Job loses everything, loses his children, loses his cattle, his sheep. Things are taken from him. Things are burned up. He has 10 children, 7 sons, 3 daughters, and in one night, they all die. In one night, the same night, while he is having a feast, while he is having dinner, someone comes and says, all your servants have been killed, and your cattle and your camels and your sheep, they were all taken. And while the words are still in the mouth of that servant, you can read it in chapter 1, another servant comes and says, all of your servants have been captured and they've been killed. And while the words are in that messenger's mouth, another comes and says, your children are all eating under the same roof, all 10 of your children. And a storm came, collapsed, killed them all. And he's left there. In one evening, he lost everything. But this man, Job 1:1, says that he was blameless, full of integrity. And he was a man that eschewed evil and ran from evil. He has done nothing wrong. And yet Satan is opposing him and accusing him before the face of God and says, if you would let me touch his life and do something bad to him, I bet he'll turn on you. Some of us are like, nah, Job wouldn't do that. Job does. Let me just be real with you. He doesn't leave God, but he questions God. And sometimes that looks like we don't have faith. Let me reassure you, questions do not mean you don't have faith. Just because you shake a fist at God and don't understand doesn't mean that you have left God, and it certainly doesn't mean God has left you. You can be real. Does anybody ever want to be real with God? Does anybody ever want to have a real conversation with God? We have a lot of real conversations with people that don't understand. We need to be talking to God. In Luke 13, there was a current event that occurred, and this is where I think the book of Job, it represents and shows a picture of our world today, of people that are trying to reconcile the evil that's going on in the world with the God that we say is so good, and they're like, it doesn't line up. If God is so good, then why? And in Luke 13, it's nothing new. Jesus is teaching his disciples, and they said that there was a current event that had happened in those days with Jesus. And there were a group of people, 18 in fact, that died because they were worshiping together, and the Tower of Siloam fell down on them, and 18 people were killed. They were just minding their own business. And they're asking Jesus, what happened? Why did this happen? And Jesus said, do you think those people were any more evil than you are? But is God just? Why did they have to die? Do you think those people were doing anything wrong? And Jesus goes on and he tells them, I'm going to tell you that unless you repent, you will perish as well. Because suffering just doesn't come to bad people, it comes to good people as well. Bad things happen to bad people, bad things happen to good people, and good things happen to bad people. Just try to remember that. You're going to have to say that 3 times real fast at the end of service. Bad things happen to bad people, good things happen to bad people, and good things happen to bad people. And this is pivotal in our understanding of what suffering is. What does this story tell us about God? Why do we suffer? I can tell you this, and this is in your notes in the Church Center app. Number 1, we don't choose suffering. How do I know this? Because we are remarkably crafty at avoiding suffering. We are masters at making sure we do things that don't hurt us. Leg day? No, sir. Core ab day? I'm skating out. We will avoid. I just think I'm going to work on my arms today. Why? Because that's the easiest. Why? Because that's the first evidence that we've been working out. Everybody always notices our arms. We don't want to work. We don't want to work on our core, do we, Tori? Those football players, they don't want to work on the inner muscles. We will avoid suffering. We think there has to be a reason for our suffering. That is to say, suffering must be because of something I did. Job is suffering. He's blameless, full of integrity, and he runs away from evil. And the worst imaginable catastrophe that you could ever think of occurs to him in one day. Loses his assets, loses his possessions, everything that he's acquired, loses his health. He is covered from head to toe with boils. He can't sleep at night. He is begging God. He curses the day that he was born. And this is huge. This is huge. He curses he wants it, he says, I want it erased from the calendars. I don't even want the record that I was ever even born. I don't want my story to even be told. And almost 3,600 years later, we are reading about a man that hoped nobody ever heard of his story. Oh my goodness, why? I'm avoiding suffering. And God's saying somebody is going to hear about your victory and recovery over suffering, and you're going to help someone. I don't want it to be told. I wish you would just erase my name. And we don't know why we are suffering. Somebody is going to be blessed because of your suffering. Not just because you suffered, but because you made it through. Somebody needs to hear your story of recovery. They need to hear your story of how God was faithful when you were not faithful. How you didn't feel like going on, but God held on to you. We think suffering is because I did something wrong, because I sinned, because I'm bad. No, suffering, it's not. Just as you were not saved because of your works, you do not suffer because of your works. Now, there is judgment and there are consequences to sin, but I'm talking about suffering. Suffering is trying to work out something greater in you. Suffering, you ought to know about suffering, it's not judgment. It is not judgment. As far as we can see, Job suffers because he was blessed, or he was a righteous man. We see actually that Job suffers because he has lots of things from God. And the enemy doesn't want him having it. And the enemy says, let's take those things from him and see if he still loves you. Let me ask a rhetorical question. You don't have to raise your hand, but would you still love God if today, come on, you're having lunch, and while you're at Pepper's, a man runs to you and says, Eric, your wife and your daughter, which they are, going on a trip right now with some ladies. They were headed back home in a car accident and they died. And in the same moment, another man runs in and says, Eric, someone just ransacked your house and they took your motorcycle and they took your other car and they took all your tools out of your tool shed and everything that was valuable that you'd worked for. And that big screen television you got above the fireplace, they stole it. Your house is stripped. Why didn't you do anything about it? Well, I couldn't. It happened so quick. Your house is empty. And while I'm still sitting there with sandwich in my hand, someone else runs up and says, Eric, I don't know what's going on, but a tornado came and it only hit your house and it flattened it. Yeah, we can go ahead and laugh because that's how crazy it sounds. And I sit there and I still believe that God is God. Why am I suffering? And I get angry with him, and my prayers, they go up to him. And I'm questioning his position in my life. I thought you loved me. Don't you see how much I have sacrificed? Don't you see how much I have given up? Don't you remember what I left to come to you? And God's like, oh, please. Oh, please. What you gave up to come to me? What you have done for me? If you knew the behemoth and the Leviathan that I have kept at bay from not eating and destroying your life, if you knew what I was doing for you. Suffering is not judgment. Suffering is something that is put on you because God trusts you. Satan comes and accuses one of God's best, and then he indicts God and says he don't even really love you. It's just because you're good to him. Would you like someone to come up to you and tell your children they don't even love you? It's just because you bought them a PlayStation. They don't even love you. Take that PlayStation away and let's see how they are. Well, they're going to get angry, but I can guarantee you my children, they love me. Your children, they love you. And that's the indictment that is brought on God, and God's like, all right, you want to test this love? Take it all from him. I believe in Job. Suffering is put on you not because you did something wrong. Suffering is sometimes put on you because God believes in you. The devil has been after you, and I'm about to kick him in the teeth when you show him you still love me if you don't even have anything. Your suffering is opportunity to kick the devil in the mouth because he was talking about you in heaven. And his friends come, Job's friends, and they accuse him. Remember, suffering, it must be something I did. Suffering that I'm going through must be because I did something wrong. And Job's friends come to him and they said, the reason this happened to you is because you've sinned. The reason this has happened to you is because your children have sinned. And there is, between chapters 2 and 38, there is this banter between Job's friends and himself. And Job speaks and then they reply. And then Job speaks back and they reply. And it's like this play that is being spread out, and this argument. Go and read the book of Job. I'm just giving you a little appetizer to want to read God's word. And they accuse him. And he says, I'm innocent. I'm righteous. In his own eyes he is. Because we will question the suffering and the wrong that we have gone through, thinking that this is not just. God, you're not being fair. Have you not seen my faithfulness in what I have done? And he is arguing his point to a bunch of mortals that are no better than he is. And he's saying, I'm innocent. Anybody ever felt like they were innocent? Pure. I've not done anything wrong. I've done everything that God has asked me to do. It must be because I've done something wrong. And we see in Job that the righteous are punished and the wicked prosper. Why am I suffering? I've done good stuff. And Job's suffering is showcasing God's trust in him. God's suffering that he puts on Job is a revelation that humanity has the ability to choose. And they will serve me and love me out of a heart of decision, not because I have pampered them and put a hedge of protection around them. Why am I suffering? Why are you suffering? What do you think the end goal is to your suffering today? And everybody's is different. You know what? You can't compare your suffering to someone else's. Please don't compare your suffering to someone else's. Some have lost a child. And I do not know what that feels like. And all I could do at times would probably be like Job's friends and come and sit for 7 days and not say a word. I don't even know what to say. Some have lost a spouse long before they should have. Some were abused as a child and carry a weight and an anger towards people, towards an opposite sex, towards a gender. They hold angst against any kind of authority because they were abused. We have all suffered in some way or form, and we're like, God, where were you when that happened? Where were you? And we don't know the behemoth. We do not know of the Leviathan and the deconstruction of our faith that was held back, that wanted to destroy you. But the whole time, Jesus, like he told Peter, I am praying for your faith because it's the only thing that can withhold the adversary that is superhuman in your life. Your faith. Don't let go of your faith. It may get weak, it may waver, it may wonder, it may vacillate, but do not let go of your faith in all of the deconstruction. Don't let it be done in a vacuum. Let it be with people that are saying, hey, as you take that out and you weed that out of the nest and you pull that out, make sure that we're rebuilding it stronger. That's the problem with deconstruction. People are questioning God without replacing it with truth. They're surrounding themselves with other people that are also deconstructing and saying, yeah, I agree. I don't believe in God. Yeah, if God was real, what they need are men and women around them that are replacing it with truth. Let's tear it down. Let's find out what's real. Let's find out if we really love God. Let's find out if God's word is real. I'm not saying walk blindly. I'm saying, yeah, let's deconstruct it, but let's build it back stronger. Job asks, why am I suffering? And he asks, who am I that you would even mess with me? Who am I that you would mess with me? In Job 7 through 18, he asks this question. And he says, what are people that you should make so much of us, God? That you should think of us so often? In fact, it's kind of sarcastic in the way he's saying it. He's saying, stop thinking about me. Because when you think about me, you end up bringing trouble to me. When you think about me, you think that I'm a pawn in your little game and scheme between whatever's going on up in heaven. And you're like, yeah, try my servant Job. And he's saying, do not think about me. Let me be far from your mind. Who am I that you would be so mindful of me? And this same question that from a man that is not a Jew, what he doesn't realize, that these same questions are parallel to people of God as well. David says the same thing in Psalm 8, 3 and 4. When I consider the moon and the stars, when I look up at the night sky and see the work of your finger, the moon and the stars that you set in place, what is man that you are mindful of him, that you would think about him? We're trying to reconcile the justice of God. And what part do I have in all of this? In the big scheme, have you ever thought about the big scheme? And we see these pictures on social media. We've seen science and outer space pictures of how big our little planet and our solar system is in scheme of the whole galaxy. We're like, man, we're nothing. Does that thought ever cross your mind? I wonder if God even really sees me. I don't know about you. I'll let you peer into my weird mind. I'm like, I wonder if God, he would even know if I did this. I mean, look at all that he's got to be worried about. Would he be worried about if I just break the rules over here just a little bit? He doesn't even know. But Job and David said, oh, he's mindful. I know firsthand he's mindful. But we're just a speck in the whole big scheme of things. Why are you thinking of me? Let me tell you. In the big scheme of things, the prevailing question is, what is man that you are mindful of him? And in this story, man's doings are the benchmark. Your little life, my little life, in this little clay ball that is floating around in space amidst all the billions of stars and galaxies, my life, for some reason, God is mindful because he is weighing his glory on it. And he is showing the enemy that man has a choice to love me. He has a right. That woman has a right. Even if I don't give them anything, I'm going to show you what love really looks like. Why is he mindful of us? Because we have the power of choice. Satan seems to be threatened by this relationship of God and man, and more specifically between Job and God. And God is going to prove that Job has freedom to choose loyalty based off of choice and not merit. The value of man is not seen in the brevity of his life. My life is short. It's a vapor. Why do you even care? Your value is not seen in how short your life is. The value of your life is seen in the choices you make in the shortness of your life. The value of your worship is that you would choose to serve God rather than yourself, even though you have a few years here on earth. The value of your praise, the value of your faith in God that shows the enemy that God's love and your love for each other is greater than anything in this world is when you have everything taken away. You only have a short time to live, and yet you still choose to worship Him. Why are you mindful of me? Because your love for me is that valuable. You could be looking at all kinds of other things. You could be wondering about all kinds of other things, God, but you're mindful of me. Let me tell you, God is mindful of you. And then, after 37 chapters of banter and rhetoric, God speaks. Job 38. And then the Lord answered Job from the whirlwind. Been wondering where I am? Thinking you're innocent in all of this, Job? Your friends, y'all talking about something you don't even know, have no knowledge of? You don't know what's really going on. And he says, verse 2, who is this that questions my wisdom with such ignorant words? Verse 3, brace yourself like a man, because I have some questions for you, Job, and you must answer them. And he goes through this montage, this barrage of questions, and he asks Job over and over, where were you? Where were you when I balanced the foundation on the earth on nothing? Can you tell me how the earth stays at its axis and doesn't fly off into oblivion? Job, where were you? But you're so worried about your life and your surroundings. And if I am just, do you know what I have to think about every day just to make your life come up and go down at night? Do you know what I have to be concerned with to make sure that the waves don't crash too far and destroy the whole earth? I tell the waves, you go this far and no further. Where were you when I hung the stars into nothingness and I called them by name? And he says, and I hold them in the palm of my hand. You can't even look at the sun more than a minute with bare naked eyes. I hold them in the palm of my hand. Where were you, Job? I'm asking you and myself, when your faith gets weary, where were you when God laid the foundations of the earth? Where were you when I put the snow on the mountains and said, don't melt until spring, so that it waters the valleys and brings forth crop so that you can eat? Where were you? Can you count the clouds that cover the earth? Can you tell me how they hold rain? Can you tell me how something that is invisible and you can put your hand through can hold gallons of water, and I tell it when to release and where to release, so that your life is blessed? Oh, where were you, Job? In all of your suffering, look at my life. Look what I'm going through. Woe is me. Are you just? Why am I suffering? Where were you, Job? Chapter 40. He says, I ain't done with you, Job. Sit still. And the Lord speaks again. Do you still want to argue with the Almighty? You are God's critic, but do you have the answers? Oh my God, it's so easy to criticize things until it's time to judge things. Judgment is not just saying that's wrong. Judgment is to weigh and execute justice and say, you stay over here and you do you have the power to act fairness or fairly? Oh, it's easy for us to critique what God's doing until we're sitting in His seat. And we have to decide, how far do we allow Satan to touch someone's life? When we're the one that judges and allows, why did that catastrophe hit that city and hurt those people and destroy those innocent people? Why did God allow that missionary to die? Why did that pastor die? Why did that lady die? Why did that man, that child? Until we have to be the one that says, if you knew what Satan wanted to do to the earth. And I have to draw a line and say, that's enough. Would you know where to draw the line? God speaks. Where were you? I'm going to tell you where you were. I'm going to tell you where Job was. I'm going to tell you where I was. We were in the shadows. We were in the shadows being protected. Job says in Job 5, verse 17, he says, take joy when God corrects you, because when he does, then your life, what you think is punishment and suffering, correction, God is protecting you. And he is hiding you, and he is keeping you from a harm that would have tried to destroy you otherwise. And the same statement that Job makes, guess what, is parallel to David when he says in Psalm 91, he that dwells in the secret place of the Most High, he that dwells in the sea shall abide under the shadow. You know where the shadow is? It's when you can't see the face of God and I don't know what he's doing. And it seems like all hell and high water have come against me. Where are you, God? You're in the shadow. Where were you, Job? What were you doing? You don't know, but I'll tell you where you were in the shadow. I was protecting you. You want to know? I ask myself this question often. Like, I was seeking for the secret place. I remember some years ago, I read this and I said, God, where is the secret place? Like, I thought it was a certain hour of prayer. I would come to the church and find a secret place. One day the Lord said, the shadow is the secret place. And the shadow will fall on you when you let me get between you and the thing trying to attack you. Where is the shadow? It's when you let God be God. It's when everything is going wrong in your life, but you still exalt and lift him up and say, God, you are above me. You are in front of me. You are all around me. God, you are still God when I don't even understand why. He that dwells in the secret place. When you have a problem with God, will you let him be God? And then let me end with good news. How many want to hear some good news? I always like to try to leave with some good news. He's a mediator. And Job asked the question, this is why it's so important that he is not a Jew. In a book that is recording the history of God with the Jewish people and God's interactions with humanity, this one book is about a man that doesn't even have the promises of God for him. They're not for him. The covenant, it was not even entered in with him. It was for another people. And he asked the question in Job 9:33, oh, that there was a mediator between me and God. Oh, that there was someone that could get to God for me, because I don't even feel like I can talk to him, that could bring us together. And those of you that, if you know, you know. He's asking if I could have a mediator. Does anybody know we've got a mediator today? Does anybody already know the answer to his question in life? Has anybody ever been there that, God, I wish somebody would take my case to you and fight on my behalf? Let me tell you this morning, you have an adversary to your faith, but you also have an advocate to your faith. And his name is Jesus Christ. In 1 Timothy 2:5, there is one God and one mediator who can reconcile God and humanity, the man, Jesus Christ. Today, you have a mediator. When things get bad, you have someone that is fighting on your behalf. It's not fair that Satan gets court with God and gets to accuse me. Let me tell you what is not fair, is that Jesus Christ is in that court and he is fighting on your behalf when you did something wrong. Is God just? Oh, he's just. Is God fair? No. And lastly, the good news for you, the privilege of the righteous. Job's life destroyed. Job's life, everything taken from it except his wife. Children, possessions, even his health. And in the very end, Job chapter 42, Job finally talks to God. Job 42, or actually, Job speaks back to God. And he begins to worship God for who he is. I am nothing. How could I ever find the answers? I will cover my mouth, he says, with my hand. I have said too much already. And he realizes, I have nothing more to say. I am nothing. And after God is done speaking to him, 42:10 says, then Job prayed. And he prayed for his friends, and the Lord restored his fortunes. In fact, the Lord gave him twice as much as he had before. Proverbs 24:16 says, the godly trip 7 times, but they get back up. But one disaster is enough to overthrow the wicked. What kind of man was Job? Blameless, integrable, and ran from evil. How did he get everything restored? Because he was a righteous man. Not his righteousness, God's righteousness. The godly, they trip 7 times. The privilege of the righteous is that you get to get back up. The privilege of the righteous is that when the world tries to destroy you, you got another chance. But those that are not righteous, one disaster can overthrow the wicked. Does anybody have a testimony that I recovered one day? Does anybody have the testimony that I failed but I got back up? You got the privilege of the righteous. And the Bible says God restored everything to Job. Gave him more children, twice as many. All his possessions, doubled it. Except for his wife. He only had one wife. Didn't give him 2 wives. You men are like, maybe I should know. But doubled everything. God restored. When Job realized, God, I'm sorry for speaking against you. I don't know who you are. And today, your faith may have gotten to a place where it was deconstructed. I've been suffering and I'm angry. I don't know where God is in all of this. That's all right. I'm not blaming you for deconstructing, but I am saying in your deconstruction, let's rebuild.
Thanks for listening. If this message encouraged you today, subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and share it with a friend if you think it will bless them too. Take a screenshot and share it on your social stories and tag us at the Sycamore Church. If there's anything we can do as a church community, we would love to serve you. You can come to thesycamore.net/care and someone will reach out. Thanks again for listening.